Hi guys, I'm here at one of my larger bee yards. I've got about 110 colonies here. I'm going to run through and give them all 2 gallons if they can take it. I suspect they probably can. I'm going to medicate them, and I think I'm going to go ahead and start grading for California. I started doing it over the last couple of days because I realized that I was running around and just feeding so quickly that some of the colonies had not taken the syrup that I had given them just a few weeks ago. So I was kind of wasting my time. So I said, okay, I'll slow down and just get a quick grade. I'm not going to do a really accurate type grading. I'm just going to kind of flip the hives up, look underneath at the population. I'm going to crack them in half, take a look at the population in the top box. If they look like they're ballpark 8 frame populations or above or really close, I'm going to go ahead and just mark them. That way I can get a quick count on how many hives I can maybe send to California. And if I need more colonies or if I have extra colonies, I can start reaching out to some of the other beekeepers in the area, because we'll share colonies to make sure we can even out everyone's load. And the number won't be exact, but it'll be a ballpark. So it's going to be a lot of work today. It's a lot of colonies to get through, but I think it'll be worth it. And I'm hoping this yard will be really good. When I was here a month ago, half of the hives were incredibly strong and the other half were kind of average. But they've had 2 gallons since then, and it's been a month. So I'm hoping most of this yard will go, and I haven't gone through them yet. So we're going to open them up and we're going to find out. I just got to the bee yard and I was walking around taking a look, and I saw a pretty large cluster of bees here just outside the yard. I don't know if it's a swarm or an absconsion. Either way, I don't really want it. So hopefully if I find a dead out, I can shake these bees in there and rebuild them. If not, I'll just bring them back to the house. This is a big problem when it comes to California, are these ant beds. California doesn't want any ants. I think specifically they don't want fire ants, but you know, they're so crazy over there, they'll stop you. I've had guys get stopped when they have a mosquito larva on the truck. If they even suspect there's some kind of insect and it could potentially be an ant, they're going to stop the truck at the checkpoint in the middle of the day, take the net off all the hives, pull the hives off the truck, and then pressure wash them, reload them, re-net them, and charge you a massive amount of money. In the meantime, your bees are going to be flying out all over the place. Your populations are going to drop. Some of the hives might be killed. So you can't play around when it comes to the ants, although I think it's a little ridiculous. They have fire ants in California already, but whatever. That's kind of the game you've got to play. So when I see ant beds like this, and you see it's already getting back there in the pallet, and that's really common. When it gets cold, the ants move to the hives because they generate heat. And of course, I've got buckets that are dripping syrup down onto them. They like that as well. So all I do this time of year, during the spring and summer, I just kick them. But this time of year, I can't play around. So I'll kind of break them up. And then I just put just an ant poison. I like to use the granules. I don't care what kind. I buy this because it's kind of cheap. And then I just sprinkle the poison on them and around them. They won't hurt the bees. The bees will be just fine, but it'll kill the ants. I don't really bother if the males are kind of in the center of the yard or on the outside of the bee yard, as long as they're not directly on the hives. Because honestly, all this poison is really going to do, it might kill this male, but then they're just going to move probably over there. And if they're over there and I kill them, and then they move back over here. So it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole all winter long, but I always keep a bag of poison with me. That's something you absolutely have to do. I've used the liquid spray too, but I've always been a little concerned I might get some in the hive. I mean, it is an insecticide. So I've just used the granules just to be safe. I always keep a bag in the truck. And if they're anywhere near the hives from here until we ship them in January, February, I'm going to start killing all those ants. That's really important to do if you want to go to California. Don't play around with that. They will wash your truck. So one thing I'm doing when I'm running around and grading these colonies is I'm checking out the queen health. I've still got mated queens coming out every weekend, and I've got some with me. I bring them out to the bee yard every day. And you see how spotty this is? Like that shotgun looking pattern. Normally I would see that and I go, oh, that's a bad queen. I'm going to pinch her, which I don't think the camera is going to pick up on it, but I can see really that she's laid eggs in every one of these cells. I see a nice pattern going from eggs into young larva. The young larva looks healthy into the camp brood. So it almost makes me feel like it's not the queen. So I looked a little closer, and if you guys can see right there, see that uncapped pupa right there, that worker pupa, that's called bald brood. See, there's another one right there. That's a sign of mite damage. So that's some of the VSH. I want to make sure I don't say VHS. The VSH genetics that we have in some of our queens. They're going to uncap it, and that's going to disrupt the pheromone production of the mites, which will interrupt their mating cycle. And it's not hyper effective or anything. I'm still going to have to medicate, but that kind of alerts me to mites. And there was another, I had a little diseased larva here somewhere. I've lost it, but I also saw a larva that was kind of decaying. There it is, right there. It's kind of melting a little bit. I mean, that, I don't know what that is. That could be bacterial, could be viral, but seeing the spotty pattern and seeing the bald brood leads me to believe it's mites. I'm not seeing any mites on any of the bees. I'm not seeing any deformed wings anywhere. The population's pretty low. It's barely holding on to a 5 frame. And I just also remember that when I was here a month ago, this first pallet here in the yard had some mite issues. That's what made me go ahead and just treat the whole yard to be safe, because normally if you've got mites in one hive, just medicate the whole yard because they will spread to the other locations. But that's just a little warning. Like, if you see a spotty pattern, don't just assume it's a queen and pincher. It may not be. I can see she's laying very, very well. I just know actually it's spotty because of the viruses that were present because of the varroa mite, and the bees were pulling them out, or they were just dying, like you were seeing this rotted larva here in the cell. So the queen is fine, I believe. It just had mite problems, but it looks like my last round of medication cleared them up. I'll probably hit them again just to be safe, and hopefully we can turn them around. Doesn't bode well for this hive going to California. If the pattern looks like this, you know, so late into November, I don't know if they'll turn around. They'll probably overwinter, they'll be okay. I just don't know if they'll go to California, but as long as I don't see too many colonies like this in the yard, it's going to be okay. But we'll dig a little deeper and see. Now, what I like to do, obviously this one's already made great because it's 8 frames from the bottom. But normally what I do, because they're not always that good, is I'll crack it in half and I'll take a look at the top box. So my contract is an 8 frame average. That's 8 frame deep frames, not mediums. So when I'm counting the medium frames, I count 2 medium frames as 1 deep frame as population. So I can see there's still quite a few frames. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So anyway, so it's fine. So this one's probably at least a good 10 frame population. That's plenty. That actually is going to be more than what I need, which is great, because again, they're taking the average population of all the colonies that I'm sending, and I just need to get an 8 frame average overall. They have a 6 frame minimum, so anything that I send that is less than 6 frames will just count as a 0 on the average, which of course will lower your average a lot. So I really don't like to send the 6 frames unless I'm just a few short to just make the load work out. If you send 8 and above, then you're pretty much good. So this is really what I'm looking for as far as population wise. This one can go. That's guaranteed money in California. So I'm doing something different this year I've never done before. I'm taking these colored thumbtacks. We were using these for our mini mating nukes to mark them. And I'm going to put, the color doesn't matter. I'm just going to put a colored thumbtack in the front of the lid. That's to let me know that that one's at least an 8 frame population. This one's good to go to California. I've tried different things over the years. We've done flagging tape. I'll put in the hole here with a cap, or sometimes we'll just tie it to a bucket handle, and that worked pretty well too, unless we get a bad storm and sometimes the bucket blows off and the flags get all jumbled together. You know, we'll have buckets all everywhere. Or my little cap sometimes will blow out too, and that becomes an issue. Or sometimes our UV index is so high here that it'll just degrade the plastic flagging tape and it'll just fall off. We also used to use you've probably seen it in some of the colonies, used to use canned spray paint, and I would just spray paint a color on the hive. And, you know, I don't know, I'd spray green, and that meant, hey, that one's good to go. But the spray paint's really expensive, and honestly, I think it just makes your hives look ugly. We've tried all kinds of things. We even used colored and numbered cattle tags one year I would screw into the front. So this year we're going to do the thumbtacks. I think it's going to be better. Should be pretty easy for us to see at night when we're moving the colonies. And it shouldn't blow off. I don't think there should be any issues to it, but we'll see. And that's going to be my marking system this year. So I'm about 6 pallets in so far, and I'm not really happy with what I'm seeing. The hives are healthy, they're heavy, they've got pollen, the queens are good. I'm not seeing any disease, but the populations aren't where I want. There's a lot of 5, 6, 7 framers. I mean, they're kind of right on the edge, but they're just not there yet. So I'm hoping as I get deeper into the yard, they're going to be a little bit better, but that's concerning because a yard of this size, I really am expecting this entire yard to go. It's one of our best yards. So if it's having problems, that makes me worried. We fit about 408 colonies to a semi, and this yard is 110 colonies. So that's 25% of a colony load. So I really need the bulk of these to go. If they don't, I got to figure out what's going on and see if I can rectify it. Could be just a pollen issue. I haven't seen any pollen coming in yet, but it is actually a little chilly today, believe it or not. So the bees are just starting to fly, and that's probably impacting my grading too, because when it's cold, the bees will cluster together. But, you know, it was 55 degrees when my almond broker graded them in California last year. So it's definitely above 55 degrees here. It's better really truly if I grade them on a chilly day than a warm day. That kind of bit me in the butt last year because I graded in 70-degree weather and blue sunny skies like this, and my almond broker graded in 55-degree weather with an 8-mile-per-hour wind, and it was also overcast. So there was a big discrepancy between what I selected to be good and what he considered to be good. And I think really just the weather conditions were the main issue. So I've got to watch that too. It's hard to predict the weather in California since I'm on the other side of the country. But I'm going to keep digging around and see what's going on here. And maybe it's just a little bad stretch. It happens. We'll just see what happens. So this isn't good either. You can see that. See those drones down there. It's probably this cold. We've had a little bit of a cold snap here. I'm hoping it's just because of the storms, but I'm seeing a lot of in the 50-degree nights coming up. And some people, I do see sometimes the bees will push the drones out the front door, and they'll do it when it gets really, really cold. But I see this is a lot more common. When I tilt the hives up to look underneath, they push the drones down to the bottom board, and they just kind of keep them shoved down there. They will eventually push them out here to the entrance. But when I see this, that means my drones are probably about to go bye-bye, unfortunately. Okay, here's a double deep. Let's see. Pretty heavy. So not really. I'd say this one's a really nice 5-framer from the bottom. You can see there's a lot of empty frames over there. See, I'm counting about 5 empty frames. Some of it's foundation, which is part of the problem. So if just judging from this bottom box solely, I'd call it just a 5-frame, which is not good enough to go. Let's see here. So no, this one's not good. And I can see the problem there too. See, we got all those empty frames over there. I see some foundation as part of it. They've definitely plugged out that little top section. So no, I mean, the colony doesn't look unhealthy. And this is what I'm seeing in a lot of them, is there's still about a 5, 6, 7 frame population. They got plenty of food. I'm not seeing any signs of disease. All these colonies got new queens, and I even came back and requeened the bad ones later in the season. And they just haven't really grown very much. I opened this colony up in particular because I saw some workers bringing in 2 types of pollen. So I was hoping it would be a little better, and the weight was really heavy. But even with the pollen coming in, even with all this weight, they don't have the population I need right now. And that's definitely concerning me. So got another hive here. It's got a lot of mite damage. See the spottiness? Same thing. There's eggs in every one of these cells, or young larvae. But yeah, they're just riddled. And I don't see any mites on the bees. I don't see any deformed wings. I am seeing some that look like they've maybe got some K. That one's a little old, but there's some that seem like they had a K-wing virus. That's just when obviously it's just like the name says, their wings are unfolded in like in the shape of a letter K, which bees will do that naturally anyways, just to stretch the wings a little bit. But if they're walking around for extended periods of time with their wings extended, then that's an issue. So I saw one, I missed it by the time I grabbed the camera. So got a lot of mite problems here too, because I was about to pinch this queen and replace her, but that's just mite issues. So here's another frame. Here's the queen from that sick hive. We were marking the queens earlier this year. I stopped because it was just kind of a pain in the butt. So she's hanging in there. I know that she was a new queen this year. I can see some, looks like decaying larvae there, and still just overall spottiness. Thankfully, this is only the second colony I've seen so far in this yard to look like this. And I'm not seeing any active mites. So like there's one that might have a little bit of K-wing. So yeah, she's got her wings extended. She doesn't have the other pair out. But I was seeing a bunch of that earlier when I first pulled the frames. Definitely mite problems. Doesn't bode well because I've seen it now in 2 locations. And I mean in 2 hives, then there's probably more. So gonna have to treat for mites for sure. That might be the reason why some of the populations are lower than I want. But I don't know. I'm gonna keep going. Hopefully this is just kind of a one-off thing. All right, I'm about a third of the way through the yard right now, and I'm getting a little bit depressed because most of them are not where I want them to be. I need a little pick-me-up. So one little experiment that I did when I was here a month ago, I guess it was about mid-October or so, I took these deep boxes of foundation and I threw them on all the colonies that were like 15, 20 frames. Not all of them, but a lot of them, the ones that seemed like they were drawing wax. I've never tried that before. I just wanted to see if they would do anything with it. And of course, I gave them a 2-gallon bucket of syrup as well. I didn't think they would really draw anything and that I was going to be pulling the boxes off, which they haven't done much. I just popped this lid a second ago and it looks like they're starting to draw a little foundation, so that's good. If they were sick with mites, they would not be doing that. They obviously have not drawn a deep box of foundation in 4 weeks. But they're doing a little something, so that's a plus. Look at that. Was it worth putting it on? Probably not. I'm probably still going to have to pull these things off, but that bodes well for this hive. I might just leave it. I wanted to see how late we could draw a foundation out over here based off the feed. And you guys saw maybe in the previous videos they were drawing medium foundation, but I did scatter some deep foundation in some of these larger yards like this to see if they would, and I really didn't expect them to do anything. So that's really not worth it, but they're still working on it from what I can tell. So I'm going to keep digging around, and that probably this hive is going to be good. If I see them drawing wax like that, they're probably in good shape. Yeah, this is that triple I was just popped off. You can see they're making a ton of wax here. That's the box there from the bottom. I mean, I can already see that one's slam full of bees. This one's definitely going to California. You know, 1 out of 100 is not bad, I guess. Actually, look at that, though. Nope, that's a, shoot, that's barely 4 frames down there. All right, well, let me crack this one in half and see. Hopefully they're not going to disappoint me as well. All right, this is that hive and a half. There are slam 10 full frames of bees up here. Now, that's a medium box, which means I need 2 frames to equal 1 deep frame, so that's about a 5-frame population. And then we had about a 4-frame population down there, if you saw. So that's 9 frames, so it's good. I mean, it looks fantastic from the middle. Whenever you crack them from the middle, they always look great. But if you grade them from the bottom, that's when they start showing their true colors. So this one is good, but not nearly as good as I had thought when I just popped the lid off or cracked it in half. So you got to really grade from the bottom to get an accurate estimate. But this one will go, thank goodness. Well, you look at this. Literally, I've got one hive just down the row that's kicking their drones out, and then I've got a hive just a couple pallets down that's raising drone pupa. They can't make their minds up. These hives are driving me crazy, and I tell you, that first row was so bad. I was very upset. I'm getting into the second row, and they're looking much better. So I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to keep working. These bees are going to give me a heart attack from the stress. I don't know what was going on with that first colony pushing the drones down. Here's another one, and look at that. Lots of drone pupa. So I don't know, there's a drone hanging out there. So I don't know. I guess they're still making drones. I don't know what happened with that first hive, but that's a good sign for me. Keep growing, girls. Okay, I just finished running through all the hives. Graded them all for California. Gave them some more mite medication. I did see some mite damage here and there, but nothing like those 2 colonies that I filmed. Just a little bit of cat brood chewing. Most of the brood looks pretty healthy. That doesn't seem to be the issue. I have to say this first row just kind of sucks. I don't know exactly why. I mean, some of it was mites, some of it's foundation. The second, the third row were much better, especially the middle row. They were actually really good. So the yard is not as strong as I want. I was really hoping at least 50% of this yard to be ready to go to California as of now. I didn't get a count yet, but I don't think that's anywhere near the case. The good thing is they're right on the threshold. There's actually 3 kinds of pollen coming in, plenty of pollen. You guys saw the drones that they're producing, so they're still in a state of growth. Thank goodness I bought all that extra syrup because I'm hoping the 2 gallons will help juice them up a little bit more. Some of them are 100% honey bound. I'm just gonna have to bypass feeding them, but you know, most of them need another 2 gallons still. So I do have hope. The yard's not in quite as bad a shape as I was expecting. But you know, it wasn't as good as I was hoping either. I really thought these would be a lot better, but I've still got hope that they'll make it. And I still have a couple cards to play. Of course, I can start moving brood frames around to boost populations. I can combine, there's some weak colonies in there I can just merge together. And of course, I could already move them. I could move them to mustard. The mustard yards are starting to bloom now. But I've already got some colonies out there that I'm growing up. And if I bring these colonies into the mustard yards, it's going to create a lot of competition. And I don't want to, as long as these are bringing in pollen and they're growing and that's what I see here, then I want to leave them in their original bee yards for as long as possible. Once the pollen stops coming and they stop growing, then I move them to the mustard as quickly as possible so I don't really cut down on that brood production. And that's kind of hard for me to manage just because it takes so long for me to run around. You know, some colonies might get shut down before I get them in mustard. I don't know. That I almost, after seeing this first row, I almost said, forget it. I'm not going to even open these, and I'm just going to move them to mustard. And thank goodness I started the second row and saw actually they're doing okay. I don't know, but they still need a lot of room to grow before they hit that 8 frame population average. But we still got time. You know, we won't send them until January or February, and I'm sure we've got, my guess is another 6 weeks of good growing weather. So that's 2 more rounds of brood. The one good thing I would say about this yard is there's 110 colonies here. I didn't lose a single colony, and it's been 4 weeks since I've been here. Typically, I lose 1 to 2 hives in every yard that I go to. It's just pretty normal. Didn't lose any. So they are overall healthy. They're just, the populations aren't quite where I want them to be. So that gives me hope too. And we're just gonna give them some food and hope for the best. Okay, everybody's fed. 110 colonies, 2 gallons a pop. That's 220 gallons of syrup out from that 2,600 gallon load. I add a little water, so it's probably not quite that much syrup. Probably with whatever I spilt, because I'm trying to fill buckets in the dark and my phone was dying. I didn't have a light. My headlamp's going in and out, so the buckets were just constantly overflowing. And if anybody has not fed bees at night, I'll tell you, they really don't like it when you take that big heavy bucket and you flip it up and it boom, hits them, and then you got a white light. I got tore up. So it wasn't fun, but hey, I got it done. Feeding bees at night, doing stuff at night is just part of the job. At the end of the day, I checked the grade. Only 30% of the colonies are ready for California. That's really not good for a yard this size. And I had this yard as on my list of like good yards, my California yards. And you saw they're not bad. They're just a little bit small. They do seem like they're still in a growth state, so that's great. I'm hoping this extra 2 gallons and this thin syrup will help perk them up just a little bit without making them honey bound, because a lot of these colonies are starting to get on the verge of being honey bound because they've already had 6 gallons of very thick syrup. I hope this syrup doesn't drip on them tonight. It's getting a little chilly. So I think they're going to be okay. It's not that cold, but I don't like filling this late in the evening because it just kind of drips until they can get up there and control it. But you know, we're not freezing over here in Florida, so it's probably fine. I don't know. This one could be good for me. This one could not be good for me. I'm really not happy seeing a 30% of the yard to be California grade this late in the season. I'm just gonna have to come back and check and hope things turn out in my favor, and we'll see. See ya.